All right, well, it's like two after, so let's get started here. All right, so we'll go over the release schedule real quick before I get into like the filter stuff, get a bunch of other like kind of sustaining engineering stuff. So we just released 110.11 the end of September, and so now we're moving up the 112.3 release. Should release in the next week or two. We're busy putting that together. I think there's one extra thing that we're gonna stick in here. Um, so yeah, so that'll release somewhere in mid-October. We're just trying to get that out the door. And then at the end of October, we'll release 114.3, and that'll be the last release for the last release of the E4S software suite under the Exascale computing project. So that'll be around in here in November. And then we'll have another release in 2024 for 114.4, and the 114 line will continue. As you can see here, 110 and 112 are ending. So we'll have no more support for those. We'll still answer support questions, but there will be no further releases of it, even if there's a bug or a flaw found in this. So yeah, so one of the things I should point out is that we are actually CVE free in 110.11, 112.3, 114.4. I think I've mentioned this before, but you can go look at any given branch in here. So if you go into HDF 5, so 112 is going to release soon. So let's go look at 112. And there should be a CVE list file in here. And you can see here, it's all green, right? Oh, that's wrong. These should be fixed. I'll have to talk to Binmin about that. But yeah, that's these should all be green all the way down. I don't know why these are red in there. Yeah, so that's cool. Of course, we still do have issues, right? This is OSFuzz, and so OSFuzz has found more stuff for us to go in and find things and fix. So so this continues. These are more usually what these things are from is it's from error paths. We fixed a lot of stuff where we do overflows. There's still a few that are in here and stuff, but most of them are from reading malformed metadata in the HDF5 file. And so as they trip over bad things, they will read over buffers, they will take incorrect, they will do inadequate cleanup on the way out. And we fixed a lot of these things, but yeah, they still crop up. So it's a never-ending source of fun in the C library. Also, we started doing Coverity again. So we submitted a build of HDF5 and a build of HDF4, which has fewer defects, which is very surprising to me given the code quality of HDF4, although it's a much smaller library than HDF5. Of these defects here, pretty much every API call in the library is flagged as having a defect, which is probably spurious. I sat down, Quincy and I were digging through this, trying to figure out if this is actually a real issue or not, or if it's just confused by our large number of macros. Because Coverity sometimes picks out some really strange stuff, right? It's actually pretty good at doing analysis, but sometimes it also has false positives. And I've seen the false positive rate go as high as 20%. So yeah, and so a lot of this is actually probably more like 478, not 1,478, because there's a lot of flags. All our public API calls, everything that we do at the developer level, so all the vol kind of like semi-public calls that are in the develop.h headers that most people don't really see, the VFD calls if you're writing a VFD connector. So all of that stuff is flagged as having this problem, which I don't think is actually a problem. Valgrind says it's not a problem, but Coverity thinks it's a problem. So we'll see. Because I think I'm just going to wind up going through it about another month and just clearing all these things out and saying that this is not actually a problem. But we're going to investigate some more just to make sure it's not. Submit some other builds with like some unzipped macros and stuff to see if this is actually an issue. So yeah, so yeah, and then let's see here. Another thing that somebody pointed me to was the OpenSSF Scorecard. We do actually okay. So this is a very recent one. Most of what it's complaining about in here is that we don't have like static code analysis set up to run on all commits. This seems like it. I mean, I can try and set this up. I just don't want to set things up that take an hour to run. I'm not sure if this is going to do that or not. So, so yeah, so maybe we'll get this set up. it complains about binary artifacts because we packaged the Java stuff, the JUnit into there, and the logging stuff instead of pulling it in. It complains about our pin dependencies. So what they want is they want you to put a hash, I think, after all of these workflows that we pull in to make sure that you're getting the exact right thing and not some malicious thing. I kind of care less about these things, but we should probably do the static code analysis. I do want to fix that one issue though before I put this in there, right? And then we'll have Coverity just run all the time. But and then this we don't sign our releases. Think about doing that maybe. And this is, yeah, we really haven't made an effort to address the issues on the OpenSSF scorecard. We do actually have the scorecard thing runs as a part of our workflows. Let me go back to develop here. And so we have actually put in here under the workflows, we have the scorecard. And so it does run. And it generates a very large number of things, right? Which are like these, like this is under mine. And so you can see here, oh, this is, I set up code QL at one point and it yells about every place where we generate a format string and then use it. So that's not super helpful. But if we go to the end here, this is where it starts doing that. Yeah, the pin dependencies. So we'll try to fix some of this stuff and then put it on our web page. Yeah, and then here's like where there's actual like real things that might be worth looking at. But yeah, most of this stuff is not very exciting. But yeah, we'll try and increase this. But 7.4 isn't too bad considering that we haven't made no effort to correct any of their stuff yet. But we just start adding this in later. So yeah. Oh, and then also another thing I wanted to show here is let's take a look here. Let's go to HDF. So one of the things that I put on here is I did add in. So this is the C- results for us on big HPC systems. A lot of these warnings here are because we have this warning scheme where we paper over some stuff that are just essentially design deficiencies of the library that would take a lot of work to undo. And so we have places like where we use const, we pass some stuff in, and occasionally we have to write to it when we clean stuff up. But mostly it's const. We have a lot of mostly const things that are inside the library. So we can paper over those in GCC and Clang, but on some of these other things like Intel, that warning scheme has not been extended to cover these up here. So for the most part, you should see more like this if we cleaned up all that stuff. And I'll try to do that. That's been one of those things that's been in my queue for a while, is to extend the warning system to work for more compilers. But we have some failures here, and we'll fix this. This is usually due to weird MPI stuff. We're trying to get all this stuff fixed before the next release, the 1.14.3 release. So we have that, and then so let's see, Coverity. Oh yeah, another thing that I want to mention, we have not created the stuff for it yet, but we're thinking about dropping MPI2 support in the library. It'll definitely be removed from develop. But we're going to ask around. We'll go through our usual change process, which, as a reminder, is in the wiki. We go here, and then we go to change policy. And here's where we talk about what we're going to do, right? So we'll create a forum post about this. We'll create a discussion issue on GitHub, and we'll talk about this and see, and we'll check with some of the people at the labs to make sure that they don't require MPI2 for anything. I think it's been a while since anybody's needed MPI2, but somebody created an issue where they were concerned about it. Yeah, here, so MPI version 2.2. So this is all really old, and we're probably not going to support it for very much longer. 1.14.3 will probably be fixed to work with MPI2, but I think after that, the 1.14.4 and up will not support it. Another thing we're going to be doing is, somebody complained that static plus thread safe fails on Windows. I know everybody's very excited about thread safety now. So thread safety on Windows only works with the shared library, because the only way that we can manage some thread state is through DLL hooks. there's some hooks in DLL main, and obviously that doesn't exist in a static library because there is no DLL. So I changed this in a recent PR that's probably running right now. Oh, it's been approved. So when this thing runs through its CI, we'll get it merged in. But in this one, I changed it to a fatal error. So now it'll die if you try to build a static library because people have tripped over this before. So just so you know, that's also another change that is, I mean, it's not really a change. It's just that we're being noisier about the change because you can create bad software if you think that that's actually going to work. You'll leak memory all over the place because like per thread storage that we manage with like pthread key, I think, in POSIX threads, this is not going to get cleaned up under Windows. So let's hear. Another thing that I should probably mention before we get into the filter stuff is, so we have the BOF coming up for supercomputing. We got a good time slot. We got Wednesday in the evening. So this is gonna be about our history. We're looking for people to who have interesting use cases from throughout HDF5's history. So if you would like to give a quick lightning talk at the BOF, send me some email or any of the other people, Saran, Elena, Quincy, if you know those people, and we'll get you penciled in for that. All right, so the filter thing. Let me go in here. Let's go to HDF5 filters. Oh, filter, HDF5 filter. What? Let's see here. Where did I put it? You have 5 filters. No. So anyway, so what we're going to be doing, right, with the filter working group. So one of the things that came out of the European user group meeting was there's no the filters HDF5.
Are you looking for HDF5 plugin?
Plugins, that's it. Sorry, my bad. There we go. HDF5 plugins. So this is where we should rename this actually. So that's really about filters because it's not for any plugin. It's just really for compression filters. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a working group to manage HDF5 compression filters in kind of the same way that we have a working group for HDF5. So right now we deploy these with the library. We build a bunch of them, but they're just kind of, they're not in a state that inspires a lot of confidence. And what people want is they want to know that the compression filters are being maintained, that we have a commitment to making sure that data that is written out with these kind of important filters, like the ones that are used in H5 Pi and Pi tables and things like that, are going to be available for the future. That we're going to do in the same way that people feel confident about using the zlib and szip because they're built into the library and we maintain those. And so we want that same kind of thing to exist for other compression filters. And then also too, we want to have a place where we can kind of gather compression filters, maybe that they won't have as much the same level of support as things like BLOSK, but they would be in one spot. So you'd have kind of one-stop shopping for compression filters. Like kind of community level filter stuff. So I'm going to set up a meeting. It's probably not going to start this month. Probably start it in November, where maybe we'll get one meeting in towards the end of the month. But I'm out on vacation for part of this month, so it'd be kind of hard. But we'll get a meeting set up, and it'll probably be early in the morning on California time, so that we can get people in from Europe because people in Europe are very concerned about this. So that's probably the best time for everybody. And we'll work on filter governance. We'll split this collection of filters that we have up here into the ones that we consider kind of like blessed filters that are going to have higher levels of support and community level ones. We'll try to come up with some policies for what happens when libraries or filter authors disappear. We'll move the the plugin registration list here. You'll still be able to register compression filters by emailing the help desk, of course. But you could also show up at these meetings, and then we could also do that there. And so I have an invite list of people that I'm going to invite to this group. Mostly people who are at the European Hug and have expressed some interest. If you would like to be a part of this, then shoot me an email, derobbins@hdfgroup.org, and or contact the help desk, and we will get you in on this. And we'll put a post, I think, on the forum to mention that this has been kicked off, and here's where the meetings are, and you can hassle me, and I'll send you a Teams invite just the same way that we do for the working group meeting for HDF5. And we'll set up some mailing lists. We've been doing some IT changes here, so I haven't had those set up quite yet, but I want to have mailing lists set up for both HDF5's working group and the filters working group. And let's see, what else did I have on here? Yeah, we'll basically document everything here in this wiki. So that would be where we put our governance in there. And yeah, so there'll be people in there from HVAC Pi. We're hoping to get Francesc in there from Blosk to show up occasionally, and us, and I think Elena was very interested in this. So, and that's what I have. That's my my stuff for today. Any questions?
I have one, although I'm an employee, so I would rather someone else ask questions. But if no one else, I wonder if that meeting and this filter working group, I typically tend to translate contents of HDF5 file and filter information to basically some other tools can access the data. And so what I find a problem with is that the 6 parameters, the CD values or something that's essentially up to every filter to use at its own disposal in the current setup of HDF filters. It's undefined what do they mean. They're just like, well, it's those are 6 values, you use them as you wish, and it's kind of recorded. But I think it will be very helpful that one of the tasks of this filter group is kind of define what those things are in the current filters that are being hosted here in this repository, so that when the translation happens, there is ability to basically transfer that information correctly to maybe some other software that implements exactly the same compression algorithm, but again works outside of the HDF5 library completely.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about having as a function of this repository is to enforce some standards, and one of those standards would be documentation. That anything that's going to be in the special side of things needs to have everything documented. And we talked about potentially implementing some coding standards. Most of the filters aren't really a lot of code; they're usually pretty small, but we do need things documented like that. And we talked, one of the things that we'll also talk about is, is this enough? Is what we have in the filter struct suitable for writing filters, especially given things like heterogeneous compute, right? Like, do we want to have allow people to specify callbacks for memory allocators and stuff like that, or have the option to kind of like, be smarter about where memory or where things are kept in memory, like pinning stuff into the GPU because the next filter is going to use it. So stuff like that, right? We can we can discuss in these working group meetings.
Cool, thanks.
But yeah, that's, I mean, the whole point of this is to really just like make sure that, I mean, right now, the filter community has always been kind of the Wild West, and we want to stop that for at least the very important filters that everybody seems to care about, that are very popular in the industry and in other HDF5 related projects. So I want to make sure that stuff gets into like this kind of like this core where it's well documented, it's well supported, people have confidence that it's going to show up all the time. We test it as the CI action with the rest of the library, stuff like that, I think would be very helpful.
Yeah, another idea, since we're talking about that, one idea that I had is if as part of this filter thing, we can set up some kind of benchmarks that actually are going to compare the some reasonable statistics about all these compression methods. I mean, one of the things, for example, I'm always thinking about what's the effective chunk size that you kind of start losing the benefits of if they keep growing and then you have to decompress them. Like, where is there some kind of an optimization minimum where you basically benefit from both compressing them and in some meaningful time, and you get the smaller chunk size and that kind of thing.
Right. Like, should we have like a script, right, that you can just like run, like some PowerShell or shell script that you can just run that goes ahead and creates some data sets, runs a little program that just sets up different chunk sizes and sets different filters, and then just dumps the stuff out to you. Like, here's a bunch of statistics that says, this is probably going to be ideal for the kind of data that you have if you fed it some example data, like what's got the best compression ratio, what was the fastest, stuff like that. That'd be a nice tool. And we talked about that. Unclear, like, who's going to write that or what sort of support. We have the European people have some sort of organization that provides for kind of like sustainability money, and they thought they might be able to get some of that, and then they could use that money to do some of this work. But we'll see. We can also shop stuff around ourselves.
Sure. I mean, I didn't mean immediately or something, but it seems like this working group, again, it seems like there could be a nucleus of some kind of community specifically about all these HDF5 compression filters. And so, see how it goes.
Definitely. Any other questions? Okay, well, that's all I had today. And we'll see you guys in a month.